Well, good morning, everyone. How sweet it was to meditate with you this morning. So there is a story from the Sufi tradition of a great Sufi master and healer who was called to the home of a sick child. And many people had gathered there to be of comfort and help. And so the master, the healer, steps up to the bed where the child was laying, places his hands on the child, and says out loud, "Rest easy and be healed." The parents were very grateful. But over in the corner, there was a man who seemed agitated, disbelieving, and even somewhat aggressive. And so he pipes up loudly. He says, "How can you heal a child just by saying a few words and some spiritual mumbo-jumbo?" The master turns to the man, looks him square in the eye, and he says, "What do you know of spirituality? You don't know anything at all. You know nothing." And he says this out loud in front of everybody. And the man gets red-faced, angry, and he's shaking. And the master says, "Wait a minute, sir. If a few words from me can cause you to become red-faced, angry, and shaking, can they not also heal?" When we take a few moments to investigate the feelings behind our words, we can uncover motives that are often hidden or even confused. Self-righteous words can sometimes mask anger. Angry words can sometimes mask a self-righteousness. Sometimes we engage in useless banter out of a feeling of unworthiness or a need for approval and attention. And it is not without cause that the Buddha included wise speech as one of the steps of the Noble Eightfold Path. It is an amazingly fruitful arena for exploration and a place where mindfulness can be practiced throughout the day. So when I first read those words, specifically these, sometimes we engage in useless banter out of a feeling of unworthiness or a need for approval and attention. It shook me. Isn't truth amazing how it has this ability to sometimes crack us open like a ripe cantaloupe or shake the ground that we walk on? This ability to come across truth in whatever way it is. It could be a sunset, it could be a smile from a stranger, or it could be words read from the Dharma. And you just kind of feel naked because it's like, oh, wow. Helping us to see what we could not otherwise see. And so when I read that, I emailed it to my teacher. And he simply said, "Yeah, can you feel that?" And I'm like, wow. I could really feel that deeply, on a deep level. Because I discovered at a very young age that my words could make people laugh. So as what they call a latchkey kid, my father was pretty much absent throughout most of my life, and my mother was an alcoholic. So there wasn't a lot of folks, and I'm an only child, so there were no siblings. So conditioned patterns of speech and behavior began to develop. I learned that I could say things that would make people laugh. I could do and say funny things that would entertain people. Laughing people love me. Laughing people won't leave me. This is the unconscious belief patterns set up by the young child to try to get what it needs. It's a very natural process. It's conditioning. The Buddha talks of it often. So these conditioned patterns of speech and behavior worked well for a while. It wasn't ever really my performing and my language that kept people there, but I thought it was. And this turned into the class clown. And after a while, I had the whole class in stitches, much to the chagrin of my teachers. One of them even wrapped a bandana around my mouth one time. So you've got to stop, kid. I don't blame them at all. And as I became a young man in the worlds of business and school, it stayed with me, this conditioned, habitual pattern of speech, to constantly chatter, to babble, to try to entertain, never really seeing beneath it. It's like I mentioned before, when we take a few moments to investigate the feelings behind our words. So there was an unconscious automaticness to the constant ramblings. And so recently, my teacher's been kind of Buddha whacking me on this. He says, you know, you just said that and then you laughed, but it wasn't funny. And I'm like, So we got to sit and talk about that. And then I started watching it. I started kind of investigating. And in my conversations, silence could become uncomfortable, so I would ramble. If it was someone that I was unsure of as to whether or not they liked me, I would go into this entertaining chatter. So it's become an incredibly fruitful area for investigation, for really a playful inquiry. It's a little bit painful, but yet I can feel the growth from it. It's an area that I feel a little ashamed of to look at, but yet when we approach this investigation from a playful curiosity, Zen mind, beginner's mind, to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must come as a child, innocent, vulnerable, and trusting. When I look at it from that standpoint and realize that these were conditioned patterns of speech and behavior learned at a very young age, I'm now investigating it and can work with it with the tools that I now have and the community that I have around me. And I can begin exploring where this comes from. And with that, peel away the layers of conditioning and to begin to reveal my true nature. I can see the patterns, and when we see them, we break them. All it takes is awareness. As I become more in touch with what I'm feeling, I become more in touch with who I am, and I realize that when I'm doing that, there's compassion arises. Oh, there's that little voice that's trying to entertain, trying to get somebody to stick around, trying to get somebody to like me. And when I see that, it's me that needs to like me. It's me that will never leave me. Everyone else, as we already know, in impermanence, is going to come and go. So in working with that, we find everything we need right here and right now for our own soul's awakening. So how then are we to cultivate samavaka? Samavaka is the Pali term for the third noble truth, or wise speech. How then do we cultivate this? Author and poet William Blake said, if one is to do good, it must be done in the minute particulars. General good is the plea of the scoundrel, the hypocrite, and the flatterer. If we want to do good, then it must be in our words to the people that we live with, the people that we work with, the people that we meet on the street, the people that we interact with at the stores. We have a little saying in our Buddhist practice that if you want to save the world, save yourself. Meaning that any word said from a place of fear, greed, hatred, or delusion is only putting more of that into the world. When you come from a place of love, joy, compassion, and equanimity, then your words will come from that place. Let your words come from a connection to the heart. Then we're putting more of that into the world. So that's what that means. If you want to save the world, save yourself. Do your investigating here. Purify here. And then radiate that out into the world and be a light unto the world. So at the front door, you guys may have noticed, I set a little sheet out there called Cultivating Wise Speech. If you didn't get one, it's okay. You can pick it up on the way back. But the Buddha was very clear. Before uttering a single word, it must pass through 4 gates. The first gate, is it true? Is what you're saying true? Number 2, is it helpful? It can be true and spoken at the wrong moment, not helpful. It's what we call brutal honesty. Number 3, is it kind? In other words, can they hear you? If they are in a mental state and you pull out this nugget of truth, are they going to be able to hear you? Jesus called it, never put pearls before swine. And number 4, is this the time and the place for it? So before we utter a single word, it must pass through 4 gates. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it kind? Or can they hear you? And number 4, is this the time and place for this? In the middle of a rock concert, probably not the best place to bring out these pearls of wisdom. So we could begin right there in cultivating wise speech. Explore these gates. Notice before you speak. If you want to work with all 4, great. If you want to work with 2 of them, fine. Work with 1 of them. Just begin to explore these wise teachings. Before you say anything, see if you can pick up on if it's true. Is it kind? Can they hear me, in other words? Is this the time and the place for it? And is this helpful? So recently, Oren Sofer came for a retreat here and spent 4 days with folks, and his retreat was very much about wise speech. And so what you're seeing here is some snippets from that retreat. He talks about being mindful of speech, and this is right where I'm at right now. As I move into my day and I'm speaking with people, I'm trying to be intensely mindful of my words. Not so much the words themselves, but where are they coming from? So there are a few guidelines that Oren lays out for us. When and where am I most easily truthful? Where is it and with whom are my words? Do they seem to be connected to the heart? And do they seem to flow in a wise way? Notice those situations. Also notice, where is truthfulness hardest and least present? What I'm discovering is that there's a feeling nature connected with this. When I'm with my teacher and I'm with students, the feeling is very, very clear and open. Truth seems to flow. And if something comes out that perhaps is not skillful or truthful, I feel it first before I hear it. And I've also noticed that sometimes in small groups, if I'm nervous, if I'm anxious, then there's a feeling nature to what's coming out of my face. And then when I hear it, it's not very skillful. It doesn't feel right. So what I'm working with is the feeling nature first. That seems to be the source of the words. That's how this practice is manifesting for me. Are there times when I speak harshly? Yes, it's usually at the television. What helps me to speak more kindly? Am I aware of why I am speaking? What is my purpose or motive? In other words, intention. If you can be with your intention. I had a theater teacher who also taught speech in college who told me one time that every person who speaks to you is wanting something. It may be just your attention. It may be your friendship. It may be your approval. It may be some information. But that's always stuck with me, because then I flip it. If that's true, then every time I speak with someone, I'm wanting something. And that provides fertile ground for exploration. Oh, what am I wanting? Because for most of my life, I've been cut off from what I'm feeling and what I'm needing and what I'm wanting. And it's all been up here trying to figure everything out. Oren goes on to say, practicing mindful presence while speaking or listening, and gives us some wonderful tools to exercise and work with. This is a practice. Buddhism is a practice. And there is no right or wrong way to do it, only skillful and unskillful. If you say something that's unskillful, you'll know. There'll be a reaction from the person in front of you, or you'll feel it. It may come a day or two later when your consciousness is kind of kicking in, and then you send an email or you call, or the next time you see them, you apologize and say, you know, I think what I said the other day was really unskillful, and I just feel the need to apologize for that. So to notice when we are feeling reactive and our words just blurt out, instead of taking a moment of clarity, breathing, and allowing a wedge of awareness to go in and provide you with a heartfelt response instead of a mind-based reaction. So these are all wonderful ways, exciting ways, to cultivate wise speech. And I want to read something to you from Jack Kornfield. Jack Kornfield said, if we could simply achieve wise speech, we could totally change our lives. We would change the world, and we would become enlightened. Enlightened means awakened to what we do and what is true. Because to speak truly means that one has to touch one's heart. One has to listen to it. One has to be there and present. Then all the rest of what one calls the path with heart will simply follow from that. And I'd like to close with a poem by Robert Crawford talking about exactly that. Words that come from the heart. The winged words, they pass. Still, everywhere, seeds of the spirit the dream winds bear, from the heart field to this, where thought as feeling is, there's not a seed will miss life once sown there.